Right now, there are over 1.4 billion cars on planet Earth. That's almost one for every 5 people alive. We build roads for them, we design cities around them, we go into debt for them, and some of us, honestly, love them more than we love most people. But here's a question nobody's really asking. What happens if they're gone? Not like stolen, not like you lost your keys. I mean gone. As in, what if in 30, 40, 50 years from now, the personal car as we know it simply ceases to exist? No more owning a car, no more gas stations, no more Friday night car shows, no more road trips the way your dad remembers them. Sounds insane, right? Except the people who build the future are already planning for it. Here's the thing. Cars didn't always exist. That sounds obvious, but think about it. For 99% of human history, you either walked, rode a horse, or just stayed put. The car is barely 130 years old, and in that tiny sliver of time, it has completely reshaped the planet. We built 4 million miles of roads in the United States alone. Entire cities like Los Angeles were literally designed around the car. Suburbs exist because of the car. The fast food industry exists because of the car. Rock and roll? Partly the car. The American identity itself? Freedom, wide open roads, independence. A huge chunk of that is tied to a machine that runs on dinosaur juice and a spark plug. So when someone says cars might disappear, they're not just talking about transportation. They're talking about a total reinvention of modern life. And the story of how we get there? It's way stranger, way wilder, and way more interesting than you'd expect. Let's go back to 1950s America, because this is where it gets interesting. After World War II, America was booming. The economy was roaring, people were buying houses in the suburbs, and every single one of those houses needed a car. Because in the suburbs, there was nothing within walking distance. The grocery store was 3 miles away, the school was 4 miles away, and the office, you were commuting 45 minutes each way. This wasn't an accident. General Motors, Firestone, and Standard Oil had spent the previous decade quietly buying up and shutting down electric streetcar systems in cities across America. Over 40 cities lost their rail transit. Buses replaced trains, and buses needed roads, and roads needed cars. It's one of the most fascinating corporate conspiracies in American history, and historians still debate just how intentional it was. But the result was clear. The American city was redesigned around the automobile, not around people, around cars. Now here's the wild part. Once you design a city for cars, you can't really undesign it. You can't just remove the highways and tell people to figure it out. The car became load-bearing infrastructure for American society, which is exactly what makes the idea of cars disappearing so complicated. It's not a car problem, it's an everything problem. Most people think electric cars are a new idea. They're not, and the fact that they aren't tells you a lot about where we're heading. Here's a fact that genuinely surprises people. In 1900, electric vehicles outsold gasoline cars in America. Not competed with, outsold. 1/3 of all cars on the road in 1900 were electric. They were quiet, they were clean, and women especially loved them because you didn't have to crank start them like you were trying to start a lawnmower in a thunderstorm. Then Henry Ford mass-produced the gasoline engine. Oil got cheap, range suddenly mattered, and electric cars just faded away for almost a century. Fast forward to 1996. General Motors, the same company that helped destroy the streetcar, launches the EV1, a fully electric car. People who drove it were obsessed with it. There are testimonials from EV1 drivers that read like love letters. One guy literally said, "I would have paid anything to keep it." GM never let people buy the EV1. They only leased them. And then in 2002 and 2003, GM recalled every single one and crushed them, literally crushed them in the desert. Drivers showed up to protest at the GM lot holding a vigil for their cars. That moment, cars being literally destroyed against the wishes of people who loved them, planted a seed. And that seed grew into a guy named Elon Musk, deciding to prove that electric cars could be cool, fast, and desirable. The EV revolution we're living through right now, it has roots in a fleet of cars that got bulldozed in the California desert. Here's where it gets genuinely weird. The car was invented to give people freedom of movement. You get in, you decide where to go, you go. That's the whole deal. The car is an autonomy machine. But now we're spending billions of dollars to build a machine that removes the human from that equation entirely. Self-driving cars were supposed to be everywhere by now. The original promises from companies like Waymo, Tesla, and Uber were that by 2020, 2021, 2022, take your pick, robo-taxis would be common. Turns out, teaching a car to drive is significantly harder than anyone expected, because driving isn't just a physical skill, it's social, it's intuitive. A human driver can read the body language of a pedestrian and know they're about to step into the road. Teaching a machine to do that, genuinely one of the hardest problems in computer science. But here's the thing, they're getting closer. Waymo right now is operating a full robo-taxi service in Phoenix and San Francisco with no human driver at all. People are ordering rides on an app, getting into a car with nobody in the front seat, and just going where they need to go. And if robo-taxis become reliable and cheap, a lot of people will stop buying cars entirely. Why own a machine that sits parked 95% of the time, and yes, your car is sitting idle 95% of the time, when you can just summon a robot that shows up in 2 minutes? The car doesn't disappear, but your car might. Okay, let's say it happens. Car ownership drops dramatically over the next 30 years. What actually changes? Start with the obvious stuff. Gas stations. There are about 150,000 gas stations in America right now. Every single one of them becomes obsolete. The gas station business, snacks, car washes, lottery tickets, that weird hot dog that's been rotating since Tuesday, gone. Then you've got auto dealerships. There are around 18,000 car dealerships in the US with millions of employees. Dealerships are famously not beloved. Most people would rather go to the dentist than buy a car at a dealership, but killing the dealership model wipes out entire local economies. Here's a subtle one. Parking. About 30% of urban land in American cities is dedicated to parking. Parking lots, parking garages, parking minimums built into zoning laws. If fewer people own cars, all that land suddenly becomes available. Some economists and urban planners look at this and see it as the biggest real estate opportunity in American history. All those surface parking lots in downtowns could become housing, parks, businesses. Cities could look completely different. And then there's something that doesn't get talked about enough: the oil industry. Transportation accounts for about 28% of U.S. energy use. If cars go electric or disappear, entire states built around oil production face an identity crisis on a scale that's hard to even imagine. If you want to see what a car-light future looks like, you don't have to imagine it. It already exists. You just have to get on a plane. In the Netherlands, over 27% of all trips are taken by bicycle. Not because Dutch people are superheroes, because Dutch cities were rebuilt after World War II with the deliberate choice to prioritize bikes and trains over cars. It was a policy decision. They decided what kind of city they wanted and built it. Japan's train system is so precise that they issue formal apologies when trains are more than 60 seconds late. 60 seconds! Car ownership in central Tokyo is almost a curiosity. Parking is so expensive and trains are so good that millions of people just don't bother. Singapore actively makes car ownership painful. You have to buy a permit before you can even purchase a car, and that permit can cost $80,000 or more. The city-state made a deliberate choice to limit cars to keep the city moving. None of these places banned cars. They just made other options so good that cars became optional. Now, here's the big American asterisk. The US is not Amsterdam. American cities were designed for the car. The distances are bigger, the density is lower, and frankly, the political will to rebuild infrastructure is complicated. But a handful of American cities, Denver, Portland, Houston, have been quietly rebuilding rail and transit options for the last decade. It's slow, but it's moving. Hey, if you find this kind of deep dive into car history interesting, go ahead and subscribe. We cover the weird, the forgotten, and the absolutely unbelievable corners of automotive history every week. You'll fit right in. Here's the part of this conversation that almost never comes up in the policy papers and the tech articles. Cars mean something to Americans in a way that goes beyond transportation. The first car you ever drove, the road trip where something went wrong and it became the best story, the Saturday mornings at car shows, the muscle car your dad kept in the garage that you weren't allowed to touch but secretly sat in, the sound of a V8 engine that just does something to a certain kind of person that no spreadsheet about emissions can fully account for. Car culture in America is genuine culture. It's not just a mode of transport, it's identity, community, memory, and emotion baked into sheet metal and rubber. When the Ford Mustang launched, it sold 22,000 units on its first day, April 17th, 1964. Not because it was the most practical vehicle, because it made people feel something. And that feeling, that's still real. The hot rod scene, the lowrider culture, the overlanding community, the track day crowd, the vintage restoration hobbyists, these aren't just hobbies, they're entire subcultures with their own languages, rituals, and traditions. What happens to all of that if cars are no longer something you own and drive yourself? Some of it migrates. People still ride horses for fun, even though horses haven't been a primary mode of transport for a century. There will probably always be people who own a car the way some people own a sailboat, not because they need it, but because it means something to them. But the mass emotional connection Americans have with cars, that requires cars to be a part of everyday life. And if they're not, something shifts in the culture in a way that's hard to define and probably impossible to replace. So here's where we land. Cars probably aren't going to vanish overnight. There's no off switch. The infrastructure, the economics, the culture, the logistics, it all moves slowly, like a freight train, not a sports car. But here's the truly surprising thing. The car itself was what made the car's replacement possible. The car created suburbs. Suburbs created long commutes. Long commutes created frustration. Frustration funded research into alternatives. Alternatives improved. And now, for the first time in a century, people in places they never expected are choosing not to own a car. The car accidentally planted the seeds of its own transformation. It's the same story as always in automotive history. The thing that disrupts the industry is almost never what the industry expects. Nobody at General Motors in 1995 saw Tesla coming. Nobody building carburetors in 1980 thought fuel injection would replace them within a decade. The car won't disappear, but what a car is, who owns it, who drives it, what it runs on, and what it means, all of that is changing faster than at any point since Henry Ford put the Model T on a moving assembly line and changed the world. And if history is any guide, the next chapter is going to be just as strange, just as surprising, and just as fascinating as everything that came before.